The Toronto Raptors continue to make moves as Masai Ujiri is putting together the final pieces of this Toronto Raptors roster, whether it be for the main club as well as the G League, and there's still roster space left, so we'll discuss that, including some backlash coming the way of the Raptors front office internally about the Raptors retiring Vince Carter's jersey, as well as Scottie Barnes getting ranked as one of the top 50 players out there in the NBA. So lots of stuff to sink our teeth into in this video, but before we do, folks, again, if you're part of the over 50% of viewers that haven't hit the subscribe button just yet, make sure you guys hit that sub button so you don't miss a single thing going on with this team. But let's dive in the first topic of discussion, because Scottie Barnes is ranked as a top 50 player out there in the league, as he should be, given the fact he was an all-star last season, improved despite the end of the season dealing with some injuries and stuff. Scottie Barnes is put in this rankings, and there's nothing crazy controversial. I don't think Scottie Barnes has earned, a top 20, a top even 30 probably placement yet, even though I think he's probably that level of talent, but obviously you have to prove it out there on the basketball court. And we do have this list in terms of where Scottie Barnes was ranked. And we see Pascal Siakam at 33 overall, Jamal Murray 34, those types of guys. Derek White at 36, which is fairly interesting. Jalen Williams seemed pretty high too, but again, they're the first seed in the Western Conference, so a little bit high, a little bit of players that I'd still take Scottie Barnes over going into next season, but I'm not mad at the ranking just solely off the fact that it hasn't been fully proven just yet. But Scottie Barnes ranked there 42, which I think is a fair evaluation for him just right now. Do I agree with it? No, but I think it's a fair enough evaluation right now. I don't think it's like crazy disrespect or anything along those lines, especially where he's injured the chunk of last year and, stats went down statistically a little bit as he went to that number one option. But the one I find interesting is OG Anunoby being at 46, ahead of an Evan Mobley, ahead of a Kate Cunningham, which I'm glad to see Scottie Barnes is ranked ahead of those guys. But OG Anunoby never got this love, never got this praise whatsoever when he was on the Toronto Raptors. And now that he's on the New York Knicks, getting that praise, getting that love. So again, I appreciate it because, again, love me some OG Anunoby, but I find it funny that that's actually the case that OG Anunoby's getting that praise here now at this point. But, interesting list. Wanted to put people on notice, Scottie Barnes being that high. But basically, we got a lot of stuff to dive into. And the next thing we're taking a look at is, the Toronto Raptors were even receiving some backlash internally amongst the Toronto Raptors front office, the people inside the organization, about the decision to retire Vince Carter's jersey. Came out from Josh Bloomberg essentially yesterday. Now, I've made my opinions known. Vince Carter deserves a jersey retirement with the positives, the highs that essentially he gave to this Toronto Raptors team. Now, does he deserve to be the first jersey retirement? Does he deserve all, the praise in the world based off of, the entire history of his career? Probably not. That's been my stance. That's been my place. I wanted to see Kyle Lowry get that jersey retirement first. I want to see a few guys get the jersey retirement first. Then maybe when Vince Carter's a little bit older, that's when you kind of make that move. You do that happen. Maybe the 40th anniversary or whenever the Raptors have their thing going. But that was just me. But it felt like, reading the comment section, that might have been just me, but it wasn't. As essentially, there's a lot of people in the Raptors front office that feel the same way. As essentially, there were, according to Josh Bloomberg, who came out with the news yesterday, there were a lot of people in the Toronto Raptors organization who felt strongly and still feel strongly that Kyle Lowry's jersey should be the first one that gets retired. He's not going to be retired, and he's not going to be retiring anytime soon. So, essentially, the fact that Kyle Lowry isn't going to be retiring soon, he's playing for the Sixers, was a key piece on that Sixers roster last season. While they made their playoff push, ended up returning to the Sixers. Essentially, people were kind of frustrated within the Raptors organization with all the sentiments that I was saying, all the things that came out. I get a little bit of rose. I don't mind the it's not hate, but the stuff that comes out, the roasts that come here or there with the discussions of regards to what's happening with this Toronto Raptors team. Everything gets bouncing around. With my takes, I want to see Kyle Lowry come out first, but there were members of the Toronto Raptors organization that felt the exact same way. So frankly, this doesn't change my opinion whatsoever. I felt the same way regardless of, the differing opinions that have scattered amongst the fan base, but I'll embrace it. Like, I'm not going to come out here and bash Vince Carter on the day that he gets his jersey retired. I'm sure it'll be a cool moment. I think there's going to be lots of fun stuff. The purple jerseys, the logos that they have going to make this year fun, regardless of the performance of this Toronto Raptors team, but I still want to see Kyle Lowry be number one. I like that people in the Raptors front office felt the same way. So there's that. And the final thing that we're discussing, the sort of lead topic that we had coming on, is Masai Ujiri still making moves. Now, again, the roster, there wasn't any blockbuster trades. There wasn't any blockbuster signings happening over the course of the season for the Toronto Raptors. A lot of moves around the edges, a lot of big decisions had to be made, again, with Gary Trent Jr. walking, Bruce Brown's contract getting picked up as the team option, made some minor moves, getting off of Jalen McDaniels, bringing in Davion Mitchell. So there were some positives happening for this Toronto Raptors team, but nothing out crazy. So we're going to have to get all the moves around the edges right in order for this Toronto Raptors team to continue to develop, continue to get better. And Masai Ujiri made some interesting sort of moves yesterday, as essentially news came out that the Toronto Raptors ended up signing Dylan Disu to an Exhibit 10 contract per a source. Now, Dylan Disu is an interesting player. He's an interesting piece. He's a guy that is one of those players that played out there for Texas and had a long college career, 6'9", he's a big sort of forward out there in the league, and his stats are fairly interesting because over the course of his career, went from a 29% three-point shooter to a guy that shot 45% from the three-point line last season at over 25 games played. So it's not a mild sample size, average 16 points per game, 6'8", pretty solid player out there for, out there at college, 1.1 blocks, 1.5 assists, get some rebounds, is a solid free throw shooter. So again, a forward that can really knock down the three ball, especially over the stretch of his college career. Again, 6'8", 6'9", 225 pounds. I saw him listed as 6'11" on a different website. So I'm going to go with the college stats and see that stuff there, but definitely an interesting player the Raptors sort of brought into their ecosystem. But it continued from there. Essentially, the previously reported elsewhere Quincy Guerrier Exhibit 10 appears to be the post-camp Exhibit 10 for the Raptors 905. Teams will often make a couple cuts a few days before camp ends, and they will then sign the players to Exhibit 10 deals and then cut them quickly for the purpose of adding them to the G League roster and getting their G League guys a bonus. And the Raps do it a lot. So essentially, that seems to be what's happening with Quincy Guerrier, who again we discussed earlier in the offseason about that move getting picked up, getting an Exhibit 10 contract, but we felt like the final camp invite would be Dylan Disu when this all sort of happened, when this all broke yesterday. But then later in the night, I'm happy I didn't rush to make this video happen. Essentially, Blake Murphy came out and said the Toronto Raptors have waived Dylan Disu, so he's an Exhibit 10 player and is 905 bound. So he spent the entire summer with the team, and it opens up a camp spot, so it's likely for another Exhibit 10 contract. So essentially, that's what the game plan, that's what the moves have been made for the Toronto Raptors team. Dylan Disu will be with the Raptors in 905. Interesting prospect to have the pipeline for this Toronto Raptors squad, but definitely doesn't have a shot at making the roster or anything like that, because Bruno Fernando seems like the player that's going to make that final 15th roster spot. There's still a lot of good players out there in the open market, so again, as Blake Murphy mentioned, the next signing, the final camp invite, will likely be for an Exhibit 10 player, but I wouldn't be shocked if we see the Raptors maybe make a push for Markelle Fultz, a Derrick Rose that have recently waived. I'd be shocked if that happens, but it's not out of the realm of possibility. But let me know what you guys think about all this Toronto Raptors news in the comment section down below. You guys best subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already. I'm signing out. Cheers.